And we are live. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Level Up Live. I am Dr. Sharita Gaskins-Tillett. I am your host. This is the live show where we feature the amazing accomplishments of physician women, both inside and outside of the exam room. So I'm just going to allow a few minutes for others to come in and take a sip of water. If you're joining us live, please say hi in the comments. Um, if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, definitely put your questions in the comments. I will get them to our guest. I do also want to remind you that registration is still open for A Weekend for Me, the premier wellness experience for professional women taking place November 2nd through 5th in Puerto Rico. So we would love, love, love to have you there. So just a couple more seconds, and also let me turn my ringer off so we don't get disturbed by that. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. So, our guest this evening is Dr. Kristine Goins. She is a board certified integrative adult and pediatric psychiatrist, physician coach, and world traveler. Prior to pursuing a lifestyle of freedom and adventure by becoming a digital nomad, Dr. Goins graduated from Rutgers-Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, completed her adult psychiatry residency at Emory University, and her child and adolescent psychiatry fellowship at Yale. Passionate about approaches to healing outside of conventional practice, she also completed an integrative medicine fellowship at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. Having served in several healthcare settings in various leadership positions within academic centers, Dr. Goins has witnessed firsthand the impact that burnout, stress, and work life imbalance can have on physicians' lives. Motivated by a desire to make a difference, Dr. Goins founded Nomad MD, where she empowers doctors to break the chains of traditional medicine to achieve location freedom and create their ideal nomadic lifestyle. Welcome, Dr. Kristine. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So, I like to start, this is really interesting to me, this whole concept of being a nomad. So, I want to just kind of have you take us through your journey in medicine. So, I want to know, you're a psychiatrist by training. I want to know how a
Mhm.
psychiatrist got to be a digital nomad. So tell us how this all happened.
Yes. So I decided I wanted to be a doctor when I was 8 years old. So that was a pretty long time coming.
Yes.
But in terms of my desire for travel, that actually started when I was 16. I never had the opportunity to travel in my youth, but I did have access to a lot of libraries. And so I would read Eric Jerome Dickey books and read about all these amazing Black professional women who were, world travelers and polyglots. And although I couldn't travel physically, I was traveling in my imagination throughout that entire time. And I think that was the vision that led me to where I am.
Okay.
So,
So now, all right. So you did you practice medicine?
yeah, I did. So,
Okay. So
as I
tell me
was
about that.
going through training through medical school, um, I was really passionate about trying to figure out how to fit travel into that. And so, we had that summer after medical school. I spent that summer in Costa Rica living with a family, practicing medical Spanish and traveling the country. And then later in fellowship, we had an opportunity to take a month and go away. And I spent that time in Nepal in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, learning meditation and mindfulness and about Buddhism. And so, though I was, going on vacations and having these experiences, every time I left the country, I would feel this pull that was really what my life was supposed to look like.
Hmm.
And I had to redesign it in a way that felt more aligned with my values. And so by the time I became an attending, I had reached this period of medicine where I was doing all of the things I had initially wanted to do. I was working with populations that were really important to me, with communities. I was in schools, I was in nonprofits, and I was doing all of the things, but I was still feeling very misaligned. And I think that's what led to burnout, to depression. And I created this pact with myself where I said, okay, I'm going to give you 5 years to create this new life. And then during the pandemic, both of my grandmothers died. And that really helped tug on the fact for me that time was a commodity that we don't have an abundance of. We couldn't get it back.
Yeah.
And I said that you can't wait 5 years. You might not have 5 years. So I took my 5-year plan and I turned it into a 5-month plan. And I quit my academic job and I booked a one-way ticket to Colombia. So that's how I began the journey.
Wow. So, and I agree. Thank you for saying that about time. That's one of my big things that I push all the time, that, we only get one life. We don't know how long it's going to be. We can't waste our time. And I don't mean, practicing medicine is a waste, but if you're not being true to yourself and doing the things that really feed your soul, then, you're missing out on you're denying a part of your existence, a part of your life. And like you said, you just don't have a lot of time. So tell us what was in that 5-month plan.
Yeah. So in my 5-month plan was a mixture of, one, making sure I was going to be separating from all of my patients within academia appropriately and giving them all the time that they needed, right, to hand everything off. But also it was connecting with other nomads, because this is a different kind of lifestyle, understanding what, challenges came up for them, how they handle different struggles, mostly the mental ones. What is it like to be solo traveling around the world in different countries where you don't know the people, or you don't know the language and you haven't met anyone yet. But also a lot of it was meeting with different consultants. So meeting with attorneys and CPAs and credit card efficiency specialists. And you realize when you meet with a lot of different experts that the expertise a lot of times lies in what they do, but within the US, not what they do throughout the entire world. So also getting all that information and then organizing it in a way that made sense for the lifestyle I was about to embark upon. So kind of making that happen. So it was a lot of getting all of those things together, thinking about healthcare, thinking about housing, thinking about making connections in other countries, thinking about what I wanted my new lifestyle to look like. I knew I only wanted to work 2 days a week for the rest of my life. That was my plan. And so how was I going to make that happen? So all of those things kind of came up for me.
So now tell me, how many years into attending Hood were you when you made this shift?
3.
Okay. All right. And then tell me what your friends and your family said when you said, I'm going to quit my job and travel the world.
Let's start with my mother. Okay. She was like, no, this is not going to happen. It probably took her about a few weeks, but, she was one of the main people, we're like best friends. So she's known my entire life, this kind of struggle between, medicine. Medicine is wonderful. Like I wouldn't have done anything else. But it takes a lot of investment, like you mentioned, of your time, of your energy, a lot of the resources, of your life. And for me, it was always like a tug. I remember being in medical school and I had a classmate pass, and I went to my mom and I said, like, I will be devastated if I don't get to travel the world. Like if something happens while I'm carrying this out and I don't get to travel, it will be horrible for me. And she said, I promise, I don't care if I have to put up this house. You will travel the world at any point if you need to, just keep going. So, I think that was, So I think that motivation kind of helped me along the way. So it took her a little while, but she circled back to, I do remember, I remember that this was really important to you and you did all the other things. So I think my really close friends, some of them had mixed feelings, but the closest people to me were like, yes, you're finally, you're finally doing it. So I think the most important thing was recognizing that it was not so much about what they thought, it was about what I thought. You know, it was
Mhm.
the thoughts that I
Oh, yeah,
had about
absolutely.
their thoughts, right? That
Right,
was really
right.
kind of getting to me. So it was getting out of my own way.
So tell me, what did you think about yourself though? Because you're right. I think that when you're a physician and you've invested so much time and so much money in becoming a physician, that it becomes a great big portion of your identity. And so how did you reconcile that with your desires?
Yeah, I mean, I still do consulting and I still, you know, engage in medicine in that way. So it's not like that I had a complete separation of that aspect of myself, but I always knew that I was more than just a physician. You know, and even when I work with physicians now, you know, I recognize our tendency to be very like limited or boxed in about our
Mhm.
capacities and what we're capable of. Like we have all of these incredible attributes and talents and skills in not just our medical expertise, but also our life experience that when we put all these things together, you know, we can extrovert into so many markets in so many different ways that can be really valuable, not only to us and our families, but to the world at large. And I think we don't always think of ourselves in that way in many ways, you know, not just as physicians, but particularly as women physicians, we have, you know, sometimes where we play ourselves small, like, you know, we play it
Yes.
small, we don't kind of branch out. And so it did take a lot of building up my confidence in who I was and what I was capable of to do that. But I think that the journey actually is what helped me to do that, to engage in that work even more so, because I needed the time freedom to even do the deep introspective work that was necessary. I couldn't do it working 70 hours a week. I didn't even have time to think my way out of the
Right.
situation.
Yeah. No, no, you're absolutely right. And I love, when you talk about how we're not one dimensional. And that's actually one of the main reasons that I do this show, is so that other women physicians and other professional women can see that you don't have to be stuck in a box, that you can actually write your own story and make it look like you want it to look. Like you said, you wanted to work 2 days a week. You knew that going in. You still manage to find a way to do consulting and keep your medicine skills, use those as well. And so I like that. And just spreading the message that you can have the life that you want. You just have to be committed to it and go through all of the different steps. So I appreciate what you did, and I really admire the fact that it happened so soon, only 3 years into being an attending. For a lot of us, your generation, and you're at least one generation behind me. Your generation is really rewriting things for us. Because you're not the first that I've talked to who is doing this. You're probably about at least the third that I know of who, pretty early into being an attending has made some different choices. And so I really admire you and appreciate that. Now, did you get any coaching before you made the choice?
Um, yes and no. So it was my first delve into coaching, and it wasn't a physician coach or anything like that, but I signed up for coaching about a year before I left. And it was actually my coach who told me that what I was envisioning wasn't actually possible.
Hmm.
So it wasn't it wasn't like the coaching was the thing that kind of,
Yeah.
well, maybe in ways it was, you know, because when people tell me that I can't do something, it kind of like gets me a little
Watch
fired
me.
up.
Right. I can tell you better than I can tell you. Right.
Exactly, you know. So I had explained this vision to my coach, and they were like, you know, I could see maybe that happening for you in maybe 3 years or 5 years, but you know, it's no way for you to really like leave the country and only work 2 days a week and travel like you're trying to do too much too soon. And so that was my experience with coaching. But since then, I've had other I've had better coaches who have been more helpful.
So, how many years have you been doing this digital nomad thing at this point?
It's been 2.5 years now.
2.5 years. And
Yeah.
where have you traveled so far?
So far, I've lived in Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Guatemala, Mexico, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, Georgia, the country, not the state.
Yeah.
That's where I've lived. I've traveled to other places, but I lived in those places.
Okay. And so how do you decide where you're going, how long you're staying?
Yeah. So it's kind of changed over time. I started out in Colombia because I wanted to be, it wasn't that long after, quarantine had ended, and I wanted to be close enough to the US just in case something broke out or something like that. And I also wanted to start in a place that had a tie to the African diaspora. So I had certain, goals in terms of like where I wanted to be and people that I wanted to connect with. But I was also exploring a lot of my other passions. So one of my other passions is learning about wine. And so I became a wine professional like in the last 2 years. And so what I would also do is travel to the wine region. So that's what actually brought me to Argentina. Here in Mendoza is a big wine region, and also to Georgia, which is like the birthplace of wine. So lately it's been kind of more around the wine regions. But it's also been just places that I've always had on my 70 country list since I was a teenager of where I was going to go.
Okay. And so do you stay until you feel like leaving, or like, is there an itinerary that you have that you're following? Do you have a 5-year plan right now, or is it just kind of free flowing?
So I did in the beginning. So in the beginning when I left, I had a 1-year plan and I booked everything ahead of time, where I was going to live. I booked my flights and I was very like regimented about it. And I would stay in each country for about 3 months. And I still do that pretty much. I come back to certain places where I've built like such a robust community that I feel tied to the place and the people there. And I just feel like they're family. So I have to go back and visit. But I stopped doing the planning a year in advance because as I started traveling, I noticed myself just evolving so much to the point that I said I couldn't plan for who I was going to be a year from now. Like I didn't know what she wanted. So now I have to kind of slow down a little bit and give myself time and figure out what's best for me.
I love that. I love that constant evolution, because that's really what it's about. We're not supposed to stay the same. And I think for people who are not digital nomads, I think it can get hard to see that because, our surroundings stay the same. But I think it's probably a little bit easier for you to recognize because your environment is constantly changing and you can see the changes in you. So tell me, what are tell me the top 3 lessons that you've learned so far on this journey?
I think one of them has been that I'm such a better, not just a better physician, but I'm a much better person when I have time freedom. It's something about having this space to imagine, to create, that really taps into a different part of me that was really missing when all of my time was spent doing and performing and really just filled with work. So I think that the time freedom aspect really opened up a lot for me in terms of having more clarity and really focusing in on what does it mean to design a life that is in alignment with my values rather than to live my life by default of what someone else has kind of written out for me. And then also just like the diversity of language, culture, people that I interact with have totally been able to just change and revolutionize the way that I think about things. Things that I was very, centered in, even like the idea of Blackness, how it shifted and changed and morphed the way, as I
Yeah.
move to other countries and interact with, people from the African diaspora. So many concepts that felt very, firm when I lived in the US, I've seen them morph and change and expand. And I think that I didn't predict how much I would expand through this process.
Yeah, yeah. So now you've been where you are for how long and where's next?
Okay, so I've been here for about 3 months now. Well, next is the US because I'll be at a conference in the US. But after that, I'll be moving to Lima, Peru.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then you'll
Mhm.
be there indefinitely?
I'll be there for at least 5 weeks.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me what your process is. So when you go
Mhm.
to, you say you're going to a new place, you talk about your research and everything. But once you get there, what's your process? How do you, because you talk about these robust communities that you've, kind of integrated into. How do you go about that?
Yeah. So usually what I'll do ahead of time, it depends on like how much I know the language. My Spanish is intermediate. It was like my minor in college. So being able to speak with locals, it's easier here than, let's say, it was in Georgia, where I don't
Yes.
know Georgian. But usually what I'll do is connect with people ahead of time, like whether through Facebook groups. Every Facebook group usually has a WhatsApp group that's a smaller subset of it. And the WhatsApp group really has what's going on, like on the ground day to day. So it's getting into that group to really be able to ask questions and connect and attend events and things like that. So that's one of the things I'll do. Whenever I get to a new place, I go into usual routine. So, there's the thought that like nomadic life means like you're always changing and, you're always in a different place. And that's true, but there's very normal routines that I have. It doesn't matter what country I'm in. I have a personal trainer. I have yoga classes. So there's things that I'm going to get my hair done. There's things that I'm going to do that is automatically going to, put me into the local community where I'm going to meet people every day, every week. And so a lot of times just living my everyday life, I will meet different locals. And, when you stay in a state of curiosity and friendliness, it's very easy to meet people. And so it doesn't take more than a couple weeks before I'm at dinner with someone's family. And, it doesn't take very long to do that. And so usually if I'm in a place and I'll stay in each city for at least a month. If I'm in a place for a month, and especially if it's longer than that, then I leave with someone I'm pretty close to that's part of that local community. And then I'll also touch base and have people within like a digital nomad or expat community, because there are often some things that might come up, whether it's about visas or certain things that it would be hard for a local to know because it's just not part of their everyday life, but it'd be important if you were, to be connected to someone who might not also be from that country.
Okay. So now you say you're working 2 days a week. What kind of work are you doing right now?
So right now I'm doing coaching and I'm also doing consulting. So physician coaching and then consulting with different organizations, mental health organizations or pediatric offices, things like that.
Okay. All right. Very well. So now with the physician coaching, um, tell us a little bit about that. What kind of people do you work with? What kind of transformations can they anticipate?
Yes. So I work with physicians who are really kind of tired of the status quo. They really want to break out of traditional medicine. They want to achieve location freedom. For some of them, that means living a nomadic lifestyle in a way that they dream. Maybe it's not, every 3 months. For, some of the physicians that I work with, it's, being able to live outside of the country for 3 or 6 months out of the year with their family. Or it's being able to, go to their, child's event whenever they want to without feeling the tie of, having to be pulled by work. So, some of those transformations have been, the place where someone is burnt out and depressed, and even, to the point of having suicidal thoughts, to a place where now they feel such an expansion in the amount of freedom that they have to be slow in the morning when they get up with their family and have breakfast, not feeling like they have to be woken up by an alarm and jolted out of bed.
Yes.
Having time on the weekends and even during the week, to really have quality time with their loved ones. I noticed that for a lot of physicians that I work with is one of the biggest pieces of the transformation, is not feeling as though, they're seeing their loved ones just in passing or rushing their kids out the door to daycare or school, but actually having this genuine time, and creating memories, even travel memories that will be with them forever. It's the kind of event or memory that is really invaluable, is you're not going to think about how much, how much it costs, and we can get into how much it costs, because I actually save a lot of money traveling, but the idea that this new life for them creates this abundance of time freedom and location freedom, and we could talk about the financial freedom aspect of it as well, that they couldn't access before, even when they were working a lot more hours and spending a lot more time.
So you're probably the second or the third person to say that to me, that you actually find that you spend less money. It costs significantly less to live the way that you do, because it's not, they say a lot of people here think of it like travel, where you're staying in hotels and, eating in restaurants and, those kinds of things for a period of time, and you're spending a significant amount of money. But when you actually become a part of the culture and you live where the locals live and you eat at home and those kinds of things, that it's actually a less expensive lifestyle.
It is, and I can't say that I eat at home, because I still eat in restaurants. So I'm just gonna be honest about it. It depends on where I am and what's going on in that season of my life. This season, I've definitely been eating at restaurants, and I try to be conscious of what I'm eating there. But still, even with that, it doesn't even compare to the amount of money that I would spend in a 1-bedroom apartment living in DC, because you are, utilizing geo arbitrage. You're moving to a place where there is a lower cost of living, but at the same time, there's a much higher quality of living, and so you are capitalizing off of that fact. And so even if I am eating out at restaurants every day or having my meals prepared for me, if I'm not eating out, that service is much more affordable than it would probably be for someone that was living in the US. When most people who are traveling, they may not be traveling in a way that every flight that they're taking is free. They might not be, traveling in such a way that they're really tapping into all of these other resources and thinking through, there's certain tax breaks that you get from not being in the US. That's a big tax break that you wouldn't get living in the US. So there's just these certain aspects of living abroad that you're able to utilize. And if you're doing that, and at the same time you're practicing, essentialism or minimalism. And for me, it's not, minimalism isn't really, keeping yourself from anything. To me, it's more of that you understand your priorities and what you value so much that you're able to circulate, that you're able to circulate your money and the life force of, dollars. You're able to do that in a way that only, helps to grow and helps you to optimize like the way that you live. So it's really just helps you to have more and more of what you want, and allows you to just let go of all of those things that weren't important to you, even if you saw a bunch of other people having them and were enticed. It's not something that draws you, because you're so used to living in a way that is meaningful to you. So for me, it's been a way to really center myself and focus myself and my money on what's really important to me, on what my values are.
Okay. So now I know you said that you don't plan a year in advance anymore because you don't know who you're going to be in a year and what she's going to want in a year. So I'm starting off by saying I understand that this is a somewhat unfair question. However, if you had to answer today, being who you are today, what is your plan for the future? Do you plan to continue to do this indefinitely? Do you anticipate one day putting down roots, having a family, those kinds of things? Or do you plan to have a family and continue doing what you're doing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I definitely, even, and I've had these talks recently, but even if I was to have a family and that, may happen, over the next few years, we'll see. But even if I was to do that, I would still continue traveling. And the people that are closest to me, who I connect with, have that same passion and have that same drive. So that would just be natural. But in terms of moving, the things that I have been thinking about is actually having home bases. So my plan is to actually have a home base in different continents, mostly North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. And so having a home base in each of those places and then just traveling in the in-between. So that's my idea of where I would be going.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, this has really been an enlightening conversation and very delightful, just because, like I said, it's a breath of fresh air to see what this new generation of physician is doing and believing and achieving. And I think it's awesome. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to medicine, because so many people are doing medicine in a different way, and in a way, people are living their lives in such a way that medicine serves them, but medicine is not their life. That they recognize that they are so much more than just a physician, and that they can do and be and have anything that they want. So I think it's outstanding. So like I said, I applaud you. If people
Thank
want to work with you, so if they're interested in exploring their options and trying to secure some freedom, be it time freedom, financial freedom, whatever, how can they work with you? Where can they connect?
They can go to my website at thenomadmd.com, Instagram at the Nomad MDs, or Facebook at the Nomad MD.
Very good. And I like to end on a variation of the same question. And so for you, I would ask, if a professional woman is looking to up level her, there's so much I could do here. If she's looking to up level her mindset around limitations in terms of her professional limitations or perceived professional limitations, what would your advice be?
My advice would be to get guidance, to get a mindset coach, and to do some self-coaching. I spent a year doing self-coaching. I think it was really transformational, but I also feel that there's some ways in which we can kind of set up blocks for ourselves, even within our own coaching, that guidance can really help to bring down. And so for me, having a mindset coach has been really one of the best decisions that I ever made. And so I would say, between doing your own introspective work and then getting guidance from someone else, I think both of those things together could be really helpful in getting around some of the self-limiting thoughts.
So now, where can they find these self-coaching resources?
One of the self-coaching programs that I did was through Carol Lowenthal. And you can find her online. I don't know if you can, because the name of her program has a curse in it. I don't know. I don't know if I can curse on,
I mean,
on your show.
People do. So.
Oh, okay. It's called Unfuck Your Brains.
Okay.
But I mean that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a self-coaching program that I did with Cara for a year, and you can do it, I think, for longer than that. I'm not sure what her programs look like today, but it was really, really helpful, at least for me, even as a psychiatrist and having studied, CBT. I just felt that she had a really unique spin to it. So.
Very good. Well, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate meeting you. I really appreciate you taking time to share with us. I'm really looking forward to meeting you because
You as well.
Dr. Kristine and I are in the same one of the same coaching programs. In case you guys haven't figured out, us, some of us do numerous coaching programs. Yeah, but we're in one of the same coaching programs, and we'll be meeting in person soon. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you got something valuable, at least in terms of your mindset and just understanding that you are not one-dimensional, that you can be, do, and have anything that you want to. And if you want to think and explore more of that, I encourage you to reach out to Dr. Kristine, but also join us for a weekend for me, because that's one of the things that we talk a lot about during the retreat. It is about looking at our priorities and aligning our priorities with our time. Because I think so many people are dissatisfied with their lives because they're spending so much time doing things they just don't care about, and not enough time doing the things that really matter to them. And it's when you're able to get those things into alignment that you get more life satisfaction and, just more harmony and peace and other things. So I encourage you to join us, www.aweekendforme.com, for more information. You can also reach out to me by DM. I'm happy to answer questions or jump on a Zoom call with you. So again, thank you, Dr. Kristine. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you all next week. Take care.